What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm just going to be covering the match that just finished, which is Wales versus Switzerland. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting match. It wasn't the most entertaining. There were chances for both teams, but definitely wasn't the the most attractive football to watch, especially when you compare it to Italy versus Turkey. But I'm just going to run through quickly what I thought of each team and some standout players for each team. And just sort of maybe point out which players I thought might be worth keeping an eye on for fantasy football. Although, having said that, I don't think for this particular game there were that many standouts compared to other fixtures and other players that will rise, but I do think it's worth still covering them. So let's get stuck into it. So I thought I'd start off for Wales. I'd review them first. I thought for the first half, Wales were pretty much stuck in their own half, just looking to sit back and attack on the counter. There were quite a few chances for Switzerland, mostly from crossing. But I'll get into that later on in the video when I cover Switzerland. But for Wales, it was pretty much everyone sitting deep and looking to counter through Daniel James. There was one decent chance in the first half which fell to Kiefer Moore, who headed the ball on target, but just it was a good save by Jan Sommer. Again, I think James was creating most of the chances during the first half, although there wasn't that many chances for Wales. The chance did come from Dan James, who was on I think he was on corners, and he was also creating quite a few crosses and also an outlet through that left wing. So yeah, for the first half, there wasn't really much of an outlet for Wales other than Dan James and Kiefer Moore. Bale was surprisingly quiet during the first half. I was kind of expecting more from him, but he was very, very quiet. In fact, he was pretty quiet through the whole game, but especially for the first half, there wasn't really much going through him. Joe Allen and Morel, I didn't really notice as much going on between those two. It was just kind of sitting deep, and there really wasn't much dominance in midfield. That wasn't really there. That wasn't really Wales' tactics anyway, because they're not necessarily a good passing team, especially on the ground. Most of the counter-attacks came from hoofing the ball up, playing a long ball style of football. I thought the back four for Wales were really nothing special. If anyone stood out in the defence, although technically he's the goalkeeper, but if anyone stood out, it was probably Ward. He made some really good saves during the whole match, but I thought Ben Davies was pretty poor. He had poor delivery. It was mainly his poor delivery. You'd expect better from a left back who's going to be crossing the balls in. He just really poor delivery. Chris Roberts was actually marking Mbolo. I don't know why, but yeah, for some reason they put Chris Roberts on to mark Mbolo, which was a really bad decision because Mbolo ended up getting the goal. But yeah, they really should have had someone better on the ball and who wasn't going to get out muscled by Mbolo. But yeah, so I think other than that, I didn't really notice too much from Mefan. I think Joe Rodon played quite well. A lot of the crosses coming in from the box from Switzerland were headed out by Joe Rodon. So I thought he played pretty well. Yeah, I think in terms of the defense, um, the main difficulties the defense were having were just crosses, but they dealt with them pretty well for most of the game. But eventually, they probably were going to let something in. But yeah, in terms of the attacking side, it was just basically James and Kiefer Moore. I didn't see too much from Ramsey, Morel, or Bale. During the second half, I thought Wales played much better. And don't get me wrong, I still think Switzerland should have won the match, but they created quite a few more chances, especially after Switzerland's first goal went in. And most of the chances came from set pieces, which is what I noticed. Ramsey and Bale were actually creating some really good deliveries, but there was just really no one in the box to finish them off. I mean, two really good deliveries, one from Bale, one from Ramsey, and I mean they were on a plate and just no one in the box could finish them off. So I'd probably put that on Kiefer Moore, even though he did get the goal. I think they really needed a striker who could finish off the passes from set pieces. And they still had a really good outlet from Dan James down the left wing. I think he was probably their best attacking player. But yeah, in fact, once he came off and David Brooks came on, Brooks also created a good outlet as well. But it was really, there was nothing too concrete that I saw in the chances created. Really, Kiefer Moore's chance came from a set piece. And really, that's what I was expecting from Wales, because they did create some really good chances from set pieces, but they were just had no one to finish them off. In this case, there was a short corner from Dan James, I think, passed on to Morel, and he crossed the ball, and Kiefer Moore found the back of the net with his headers. That's really what he scores goals from. Kiefer Moore is from heading the ball. He just seems to be quite good at that. I didn't really see him take any shots on the ground, but he didn't really need to. So yeah, I think that's pretty much a summary of Wales. In terms of fantasy football, I was quite underwhelmed by Bale. I'd say Dan James performed quite well. Kiefer Moore performed okay. He had some chances, but there was nothing too much, not too much there. And Ramsey definitely not worth the price for the chances he created. So yeah, I'd say Dan James probably is the best option for fantasy football purposes. Ward also made some really good saves, but Wales by no means looked like they were keeping a clean sheet, and I don't expect them to keep clean sheets for the rest of the group stages. So I would avoid Ward, even though he made some really good saves. Moving on to Switzerland, Switzerland were definitely the better side all round. Most of the chances, or most of the way they played, was very much with their wing backs very high up the pitch, playing more like wingers rather than wing backs. And Freuler and Xhaka were sitting deeper and controlling the tempo of the game. But yeah, most of the game was the back three working the way up the pitch, and Xhaka dropping deep to pass the ball further up, usually to their wing backs, who would then bomb up the left or right side of the field and crossing a ball, and it was either falling to Embolo or Seferovic. I think Seferovic during the first half had better chances. He just didn't finish any of them off. There were only half chances, but I mean, he just didn't look like his finishing was on form. I thought Mbabu played really well on the right hand side, but I still wouldn't consider him for fantasy football purposes, simply because I think he missed quite a few chances. His quality on the ball wasn't that great, but he was creating chances. They just weren't great chances. But yeah, I think that Mbabu played quite well in terms of creating a lot of width on this side. And Wales were simply quite happy to just let them cross on the ball. They didn't seem to be stopping their crosses. They were just happy to try and head the ball out. Other than that, I think that Shaqiri was on set pieces. He was delivering the corners from the right-hand side, and Rodriguez was delivering the corners from the left-hand side. Again, Rodriguez was playing quite well. I think that he might be one to consider because of the fact that he's also on set pieces. But he was also not as attacking as Mbabu, but he was getting up and down the left-hand side as well. But the most chances created, or the most chances actually fell to Embolo. Embolo was probably the star man for Switzerland. He was, granted, he did get the goals, so it sounds obvious, but he also could have gotten 2 or 3 goals and an assist. I think he was definitely Switzerland's man of the match. I think that he could have easily got a brace or a hat trick this game. But yeah, just the finishing let him down slightly. But in terms of his other all-round play, I thought he held up the ball really well. He's a really strong player. He also brought the ball into play a little bit. He would drop deep to receive passes from the midfield and then bring it up the pitch. He did really well. I thought overall he played really well, especially compared to Seferovic, who during the first half had a few chances but didn't really create anything from them. But yeah, I think that's an overall review of Switzerland versus Wales. I do think Switzerland should have won the game. There were chances on both sides. I thought Wales played much better in the second half compared to their first half, but really, I think it was just a case of finishing off the chances for Switzerland. I think they'll probably be kicking themselves because they definitely could have scored 3 goals in this game. But yeah, I think it was an interesting game. It's made the group slightly more interesting because now it's given a second chance to Turkey. I also think it's given a chance to Wales. They really had to get a result from this, either a draw or a win, to stay in it. So I think it's going to really make the group really interesting. But yeah, moving on to Denmark and Finland next. So I'm looking forward to watching that. Stay tuned.